Chapter 161, Giving Someone a Favor with a Small Price. Upon seeing that Tang Xiu recognized him, the plump middle-aged man immediately felt somewhat special as he smiled ear to ear and said, "You're most welcome. I did what I was supposed to do since it's my work. Idle, I thought I would never be able to see you again for the rest of my life. So I didn't expect that today I would come across with you here. Even I didn't expect that this restaurant belongs to your family. But the news about your family's restaurant has entered my ears so many times before. Your family's restaurant is truly great. The meals are sumptuous, the prices are cheap and the tastes are also wonderful. Thanks for the kind words of praise." Tang Xiu nodded and smiled. And then, he turned again toward the inside. For a moment, the plump middle-aged man stared blankly as he watched Tang Xiu walk away. He was somewhat quite clueless and thought that Tang Xiu didn't like some of the words he said. What was that? Trying to worm your way in to get close to a woman by approaching her child? Is she ignoring you? Those warm feelings of yours are clearly meeting with the cold rebukes from them, aren't they? The middle-aged woman who talked a moment ago looked at the plump middle-aged man with a contemptuous expression on her face as she ridiculed him. In just a split second, the face of the plump middle-aged man turned crimson. Tang Xiu, who just walked for a few steps, could clearly hear the ridicules from the middle-aged woman behind him. His brows were slightly wrinkled as he stopped walking and looked back slightly. Then, he looked at the familiar attendant and said, "I just recalled that Mom said that she must keep one or two of the most luxurious boxes to entertain the distinguished guests. Do we still have them?" The attendant said, "Yes, we still have two of them." "Is there anyone using the box now?" Tang Xiu asked. The attendant said, "Yes, one of them is being used by the city leaders. But the other one is empty. Since there's still an empty box, I presume it's fine if I take it. This fatty big brother is my acquaintance. He's a good man." Tang Xiu said. "All right." The attendant respectfully nodded. In this instant, the plump middle-aged man was shocked. Tang Xiu's praise for him made his anger instantly turn into happiness as he cast a grateful expression toward him. As for the middle-aged woman, her breathing slightly paused, with an angering expression immediately drawn on her face. She pulled the fierce-looking middle-aged man's hand, dragging him to leave. However, that middle-aged man sized up the plump middle-aged man with an astonished expression. Then, he turned toward the middle-aged woman and spoke in a low voice, "Don't create trouble deliberately. Our family finally can get together today. The others have scheduled us the best room in this restaurant with great difficulty. And this is already giving us a face, greatly." Humph. The middle-aged woman obviously was afraid of this fierce-looking middle-aged man. She snorted coldly and then turned her head with an obvious resentful expression on her face. Tang Xiu no longer paid attention to these trivial matters anymore and headed straight to his mother's office. When he saw that his mother was doing some accounting with a calculator and seeing her smiling expression, Tang Xiu also felt warm and comfortable inside. "Mom, your restaurant is doing great. I think you can afford to hire someone to help you manage the finances." Upon seeing Tang Xiu, Su Lingyun's eyes immediately brightened up. She put down the account book from her hands and said with a smile, "Sonny, don't be silly. We can't hand over the accounting to others. What should I do if they report dummy accounts? Your mother might be old, but my brain is still fine in dealing with calculations. So I can still deal with this." Tang Xiu said with a laugh, "Who dares say that Mom is old? You are and you will always be forever young and beautiful in my heart." "Ah. Right, the school is on holiday so I don't need to go to school for tomorrow and the day after. 4 days later I'll attend the college entrance test, and the test itself will be held in our school." Su Lingyun said with a deep concern expression, "Xiu. You don't need to feel pressured. Consider it as an ordinary exam. Even if you can't get the admission to enter a top university, Mom will still feel happy even though you can only enter an ordinary one. Tang Xiu said, I have the confidence that I can give you the provincial top scorer for this test. Su Lingyun was amused by his words and said with a tease, smelly boy, you do know how to coax your mom to be happy, don't you?
Ah.
Right. Have you eaten yet? I'll go to the kitchen to cook some food for you. Tang Xiu promptly replied, it's okay, Mom. I had already eaten. Recently, I've been tutoring some classmates of mine for supplementary lessons and they just treated me to dinner this evening. Whilst looking at the gray hairs on his mother's temples, Tang Xiu thought for a moment and decided to not go back to Southgate Town tonight, but to his real home. Spending time and accompanying his mother was, after all, his lifelong greatest wish. At early hours, Tang Xiu accompanied Su Lingyun to shut the shutters and close the restaurant. Then, they walked home together. The streetlights outside were dim and there was only a handful of pedestrians on the street, while vehicles were still converging on the road as though a dragon and steadily flowing. Mom, do you always go home at this time, every day? Alone? Tang Xiu's expression was a bit unsightly. With his spiritual sense, he had observed the surroundings and he didn't find Banzhou and the others around. Su Lingyun said with a smile,
Ah.
Yes. Our home is very near from here, and it only takes 10 minutes on foot. Take a look at those street lights. The light is so bright and the ground is well illuminated, so you don't need to worry to step on something and sprain your legs. Tang Xiu continued, and, what time the restaurant is open for business every day?
Ah.
I can only come over at 9 a.m. every morning. As for buying vegetables and meats, Banzhou and the others are doing the job. If not, I could have died due to fatigue, said Su Lingyun. Tang Xiu nodded and no longer said anything. However, he was actually thinking about it inside. His mother went back home at this very late hour every night, that was too unsafe. He must assign someone to protect her in secret. Nowadays, it was better to be safe than sorry and be prepared just in case. If something unfortunate occurred to her, he would regret it for the rest of his life. After arriving at home, whilst lying on a familiar bed, Tang Xiu looked at the familiar scenes in the room with quite a headache as he felt that he was lacking in manpower. When he was in the immortal world, he commanded a large number of loyal and devoted subordinates who were always ready to do each and every bidding he threw at them. As long as he issued any orders, some immortals would carry them out. But now, he had just only returned back to Earth recently and he must do a lot of things by himself. He lacked abilities and was weak, he wanted to do his own things, wanting to make money for his cultivation practice, going to college to fulfill his mother's wishes. But then, he wouldn't be able to protect his own mother. Should I train some trusted subordinates? The thought popped up inside his mind. However, in this age where wealth was of the most import, he found himself really too poor. Although he got a lot of money recently, he only had a few million on him right now. Such as the money he got from Tai Long as well as the compensation from the Rising Dragon Martial School. All of them had been taken by Kong Xia to develop the company. Moreover, the recent purchases of medicinal herbs and ingredients also cost him quite a sum. Iochen Zhizhong 2.5 billion yuan, and also 100 million to Gu Xiaoxue. What should I do to get my hands on some big money again? For a long time, Tang Xiu was thinking. But he finally tossed aside the idea of training subordinates inside his heart. Bam, bam. The dull knocking sounds on the door woke Tang Xiu, who had slowly fallen asleep. When he dressed up and looked at the time, it was at a very late 2 o'clock at night. It's so late. Who's knocking on the door? Tang Xiu's brows deeply wrinkled. He went out of his room and saw his mother also had dressed up and came out. It's in the middle of the night. How come someone is knocking our door this late? Su Lingyun hesitated. She wasn't sure whether she should open the door or not. After all, the door had no peephole and she didn't know if it was a good or bad people outside. Tang Xiu said, "It's all right, I'll take a look at it." After having said that, he strode to the door. After he opened it, the very first thing that came in was a fluttering pungent smell of liquor, and quickly followed with Su Shangwen with his messy clothes and red eyes who crashed and fell inside. Seeing that, Tang Xiu quickly moved. He reached out and grabbed Su Shangwen's collar, throwing him directly out of the door. With a cold and detached expression, he watched him fall heavily and smash on the ground. "What the hell are you doing?" Su Shangwen struggled and crawled, trying to get up from the ground. After he flung his head and could clearly see that the one standing in front of him was Tang Xiu, he immediately threw a rain of curses, "You fucking damn little bastard. It's because of you. Because you want to. If it weren't for you, do you think your father, will be so miserable now? You gotta fucking pay me, compensate for my company, my money." Pa. Tang Xiu pulled him up and slapped his face, causing him to sit with his ass down on the concrete floor in front of the door. Then, he spoke with a cold and detached expression, "Did you not hear clearly what I've said before? If you drink too much and get drunk, get the hell out of my face and go sleep in your house. Don't act crazy because of liquor here. Otherwise, it won't be as simple as losing your company, you also won't be able to guarantee your own safety." Su Shangwen covered his face with his palm as he then spurted out a strong and disgusting smell of alcohol and cursed, You damn little bastard. You've just barely grown up, and you even dare to hit this father? How dare you? If it weren't for your father, do you think your family can be better now? If it weren't for me. Your mother could have become a beggar and die in the corner of an unknown alley a long time ago. Tang Xiu took a deep breath. He turned around and looked at the door. Su Lingyun was there with a miserable expression. Then, with a deepened tone, he said, "Mom, if you trust me, let me solve this problem. You go to rest." Su Lingyun hesitated for a moment and then replied in a low voice, "But, Xiu." He. Tang Xiu said, "My people will do something about this. But you don't need to worry. I guarantee that there will be no problem with his personal safety." You. Su Lingyun stared in a daze at Tang Xiu. She suddenly realized that her son had really grown up and no longer needed to be protected by her. Moreover, she also found that her son was as though he became a lot more mature in the last 2 months, even becoming somewhat mysterious. All right. Su Lingyun had already been disappointed thoroughly by this blood brother. She then shook her head, turning around and went back to her room. Tang Xiu went out of the door and closed it from the outside. His hand grabbed Su Shangwen and dragged him downstairs in big strides. As he arrived at the roadside, he fiercely slapped his face again, making him faint. Then, he stopped a taxi, throwing 200 yuan to the driver. He gave him Su Shangwen's home address. After the taxi had gone quite far, Tang Xiu stopped looking and dialed Chen Zhizhong's cell number. Although it was very late at 2 a.m., he had no choice but disturb Chen Zhizhong. His mother must no longer receive any harassments again whatsoever, and he wanted to solve the problems with Su Shangwen as fast as possible. He was really glad he went home tonight. Otherwise, judging from Su Shangwen's character, he would absolutely insult his mother and likely beat her. "Master, you're looking for me?" Chen Zhizhong's voice came out of the phone. "Were you sleeping just now?" asked Tang Xiu. "No, I'm still taking care of something at the moment." "Anyway, do you have any commands for me, Master?" Chen Zhizhong said. Tang Xiu said, "About Su Shangwen's matters. How's the progress now?" Chen Zhizhong said, "We've started to pull him into the net. The Shangwen real estate company owned by Su Shangwen has a lot of problems and also many black debts. At the most, 5 days later, he will be arrested. Even if he won't be in prison for life, he will be behind bars for at least 10 or 20 years. Tang Xiu asked, what else? Chapter 162, College Entrance Test. Chen Zhizhong said, 2.5 years ago, his wife once had a hit-and-run case, but she got away from the charges. But I've sent some people to investigate it even though the charges against her have been dropped. Are you intending to send them together? Tang Xiu said with a dry and cold tone. It wasn't that he was a cold person. But he was acutely aware of one thing, an anxious rabbit could and would bite. People who didn't belong together wouldn't get to live together, and they were married because they had something in common. Su Shangwen and Zhang Meiyun had the same morality and conduct. They were narrow-minded, with a sharp and unkind mouth. In the case that Chen Zhizhong was to send her to prison, then it meant that she wouldn't be able to do anything crazy. As for their children, Tang Xiu had long made up his mind. If they were able to turn a new leaf and make a fresh start, he would let them go. But if they were stubborn and refused to repent, then he would also clean them up in the future. Familial affection? For Tang Xiu, it was all a joke. Aside from his mother, it could be said that in his heart, family affection no longer existed whatsoever in this mortal world. The kindness as small as a water drop had to be recompensed with a gushing spring? They did kindly treat the mother and child for once. And for that, he felt grateful. But if they dared to bring troubles to his mother, then he would fully remove all of these threats. Master, do you have any other commands for me? Chen Zhizhong's voice came again from the cell phone. Tang Xiu said with a calm tone, send some people to conduct a surveillance on the Su Shangwen couple. I don't want them to harass my mother again before they go to jail. In addition, if you have time these days, come to Southgate Town at night. Understood. The call ended. Tang Xiu put back his cell phone into his pocket as the ruthless glint in his eyes gradually disappeared. And yet, he was still suppressing the wisp of flame inside his heart. Su Shangwen was none other but the one person he most loathed and hated after he returned back to Earth. And now, he finally learned through his own experience the meaning behind the sayings that close neighbors were much better than relatives so distant and afar. Neighbors at the very least would smile, nod, and greet each other. But the ice-cold blood relatives would only create constant troubles for the family. Within the vast and obscure dim light of the night, Tang Xiu didn't rush to go back home. He was contemplating, questioning his own conscience. After returning back to Earth, he found himself coming across problems that tied his hands and bound his feet. He was fettered by family affection and kinship, as well as being constrained by laws and regulations. Had it been in the immortal world, he wouldn't hesitate to dispose and kill those who dared offend him. But in this world, there would always be various kinds of scruples in every case. He was not a ruthless and merciless person, but to have troubles emerging one after another was also something he had never wished for. Thus, completely eliminating the source of the problems was the best choice in his view. And yet, these constraints actually chained him, causing him to be unable to act and move freely. Nevertheless, I'm still too weak. Tang Xiu secretly sighed inside. For him, laws and regulations were enacted for those who were weak. He just had to transform himself and became stronger, either his cultivation strength or his wealth accumulation. For these two were the symbols of one's status and position. Half an hour later, Tang Xiu returned home and found that the light in the living room was still lit. His mother was wearing a coat as she sat on the sofa with traces of dry tears still hung on her cheek. Mom, please go rest. Tang Xiu sighed slightly as he spoke softly to her. Su Lingyun raised her head. She looked at Tang Xiu and asked nervously, Xiu. You didn't put him. Tang Xiu interrupted her and said earnestly, Mom, I stopped a taxi and had the driver send him back. Moreover, I hope you can forget him later. Otherwise, not only will you be pained and sad, even I also won't have a good end. Please don't forget how he treated us before. Su Lingyun hesitated, but, after all, he's... Tang Xiu directly put out his trump argument and said with a deep tone, Mom, I know that there's still a chance for Su Shangwen to mix in and behave better even if his company doesn't go out of business, and he doesn't go broke. But he hates us so much that he doesn't want us to have easy times and feel better. Do you want to wait for the future when he's richer and more powerful and then force you to transfer the ownership of the restaurant to him? Don't tell me you want him to force me to drop out of school and go home? Or just like before, finding a group of thugs to smash our restaurant, beating and sending us to the hospital? Su Lingyun's pupils contracted as the past events hit her heart. She was kind-hearted by nature. Yet, being forced and pressed would also make her extremely tough and unyielding. She gave a heavy nod and said, Xiu. You're right. You said he doesn't want us to feel better and have easy times. If so, then we'll give him the hard times. Mom won't ask you what and how you handle this matter. But you must never break the laws in handling this. Don't worry about it, Mom. Tang Xiu nodded as he propped her up from the sofa and walked her to the bedroom. The next morning, Tang Xiu stayed at home until his mother left. And then quickly went out of the house to rush towards Southgate Town as he still had to give the tutoring and supplementary lessons for Yuan Chuling, Chang Yannan, and his 2 other classmates. Moreover, the Everlasting Feast Hall's people from Jingmen Island had also arrived and been waiting for him. After he bought the Tianshan Snow Lotus yesterday, he had been thinking carefully, and he thought that he was not yet ready to concoct pills by himself. His cultivation level, after all, was limited, and refining best quality pills would consume huge mental and physical energy. Although Ji Qimei was still injured, however, she also knew alchemy, and it would also benefit her injuries, once it had been refined. The most important thing to do after having the college entrance test is to find precious ores. I already have the void crack stone. So long as I have the materials to refine an interspatial container, I should quickly refine it. Purchasing things carrying them with his own hands isn't very convenient. Tang Xiu took the Tianshan Snow Lotus when he returned to Southgate Town, and gave it to Ji Qimei who had arrived. After sending her away, he stood before the window of his bedroom and thought deeply. Human's desire, as always, truly was never-ending. Tang Xiu's heart had gone through countless mental and psychological tribulations. He practically had reached the point of having it tempered into a steel. But even so, he somewhat still cherished the memory of having those treasures he had in the immortal world. 2 days had just passed by in a flash. The college entrance test that came slowly, now was at the footsteps, at last. At Star City First High School's gate, Tang Xiu arrived in a taxi. He saw that all of his classmates had arrived, as the teacher in charge, Han Qinggu, was counting the students present. Tang Xiu, you finally came. Han Qinggu finally felt relieved upon seeing Tang Xiu. I'm sorry, there was a bit of a traffic jam on the way, so I came late. Tang Xiu replied with a smile. Han Qinggu snapped, Bah, then why didn't you come earlier? Anyways, our turn to enter the school will come soon. But you mustn't be nervous when you enter the exam room. Give everything you got and strive to get outstanding results. Don't worry, we'll do. Tang Xiu nodded. Shortly, the class 10 students lined up to enter the school gate. After having gone through the inspection of their ID and admission cards, they went inside and then separated to look for each one's exam rooms. Eldest brother, I'm in the 36th exam room. What's yours? Whilst holding his stationery bag, Yuan Chuling walked closer to Tang Xiu and asked. 18, Tang Xiu said. A bit of regret was revealed on Yuan Chuling's face as he said, Duh. It's a pity that we're not in the same exam room. Else, I would have more confidence to pass this college entrance test and be admitted to one of the best universities in the country. Tang Shou snapped despite being in a good mood. You know that the college entrance test is different from our previous tests. It's highly unlikely that you'll be able to cheat this time. So you better toss out those crooked thoughts of yours and do the tests with your own ability. However, he was secretly happy. Because he just thought that even though it would be inconvenient for others to cheat, but for him, it was very easy. So long as he released his spiritual sense, he could see the other examinees' test papers and answers in the classrooms. If the answers were very few, comparing the answer and copying it wouldn't have much effect. But if he got hundreds of answers, and coupled with his own knowledge, Tang Shou felt that if he couldn't get any good results out of it, then it would mean that his ability was but only making him a fool. The exam papers had all been sent down and distributed. Tang Shou skimmed through all the questions from the beginning to the end. Then, he took the pen and wrote the answers at a very fast speed. About half an hour later, he had already finished answering all the questions in the exam paper. This was the first time he didn't hold back. 10 years of bitter and hardship life study, only to win the top marks in the exam. And this very college entrance test was but only to inspect and verify the results of more than 10 years studying. Tang Shou checked his answers again. It was, all in all, just the boring time. Making use of his spiritual sense, he began to peep on the answers from the other examinees. After looking, he was at a loss whether to cry or laugh. The rate of the correct and accurate answers from the examinees around him was surprisingly low. There was even a guy who was only able to write obscure answers for the most basic essay questions. Time is up. Hand over your exam papers, the proctor said. The test for this morning was for language and literature. Mathematics would follow in the afternoon, while the other tests would continue in the next day for this 2-day-long exam. The examinees and their guardian passed the days with concern and anxiety. Tang Shou faced the test very smoothly. And in particular, he was in a very good mood. It was because he, at last, didn't have to waste time in the classroom anymore. With 2 months of the holiday also in front of his eyes, everything gave him a freedom feeling, as though a bird flying in the sky. After going back to school, Tang Shou, with his class 10 classmates, took a picture together as he immediately left in a flash. He only had a few friends at school. Even amongst his classmates, he only had a handful of people he had a good relationship with, such as Yuan Chuling, Chang Yannan, and a few others. Eldest brother, I'm under a command decree from my dad. He said that no matter what and how I must take you to visit our home by all means necessary. So, can you go with me now? While passing through the school gate, Yuan Chuling, who was walking along with Tang Shou, asked him with a beaming smile on his face. Tang Shou swept over at the Mercedes-Benz that was parked on the roadside outside the school with a driver who's standing near its door. After being silent for a moment, he said, "Have you decided to which university you're going to?" "Yep. Already thought and made up my mind about it. I'll go to Shanghai." Yuan Chuling nodded. Tang Shou was quite surprised and said, "Eh? Didn't your dad want you to go to Beijing? What did you run up to Shanghai for?" "It's because I don't think my nature is suited to study in the capital. The public security is way too strict and way too many silk pants playboys there. If I were to study in Beijing, maybe one day I would mix with those playboys and fuck up there. I never speak about it. I might be a strong dragon who's able to keep the lowly snakes under pressure in Star City, but I'll be nothing but a fart in Beijing. Going to the capital and suffer there? Hell no." Yuan Chuling spoke seriously. Tang Shou couldn't help laughing involuntarily as he then said, "I never thought you could be this thoughtful and full of consideration. Anyways, going to Shanghai is fine as well. The city, after all, is the financial center and one of the most prosperous cities in the country. If you study well, you'll be able to run and snap as you want to, maybe you can even start your career there. Yuan Chuling said with a smile, AI, eldest brother. Let's cut the crap and don't play dumb again, will you? In the end, are you going with me or not? Gimme a quick and straight reply so I can prepare myself in advance. But I gotta tell you one thing, my old man definitely will whip me out if I don't bring you with me. Okay, I'll go. Tang Xiu nodded with a smile. He was acutely aware of the intention behind Yuan Jingshuan's invitation to visit him. It had been a month since the kidnapping case, and the police didn't visit him again. This meant that Yuan Jingxian and Zhao Jing kept their mouths shut about his involvement with the case. He also knew that some people would keep thinking and remembered the graciousness they owed from others, even if they didn't say it. Chapter 163, Secrets. Tang Xiu had his reasons for agreeing to visit Yuan Chuling's home. One was to make Yuan Jingxian and Zhao Jing feel relieved. And the other was wanting to figure out and clarify the reason as to why they were faking their divorce. After all, Yuan Chuling was the one who had been having unwavering faith in him, and he didn't mind to push anything that could help him at home. Great. Yuan Chuling was perfectly aware of Tang Xiu's character. He was actually prepared to be rejected. And what he said to Tang Xiu was actually a lie. He had grown up, and his father naturally wouldn't whip him just because of this matter. But even so, he was very happy that he could accomplish the request from his parents. Half an hour later, the Mercedes-Benz had already entered Golden Emperor Villa area. This complex was also one of the high-class villa complexes. And even though it couldn't be compared with Southgate Town, the people who lived here were all also wealthy and respectable people. Inside the luxurious villa, Yuan Jingxian was sitting in his study room whilst looking at the financial statement report. His expression, in particular, was quite solemn, as a middle-aged man in a suit stood in front of him. Boss, unidentified people have intruded our research lab for 3 times. Even the recent 2 intrusions were done in a row, even though our security system is very tight, and we also have tried to intercept them for many times. Therefore, I think the more we delay it, the more problems will arise. And I'm also afraid that these people will use these loopholes and cause a huge loss for us. Would you please consider to move the core classified data in our current research lab to the new one earlier than planned? A forced smile hung on the middle-aged man's face as he spoke with a helpless expression. Yuan Jingxian didn't promptly answer him, and still carefully read the financial statement report. Then, he put it on the table in front of him. After staying silent for a moment, he said, since they are keeping an eye on us, then now is not a good time for us to move. Besides, we haven't done our best in our actions since those people could get and take advantages of the loopholes once we make our moves. In this sense, you don't understand the point that the slightest negligence is exactly the point we should take a very careful consideration for. Therefore, for now, just increase the security force. The middle-aged man said hesitatingly, but most of our trusted security personnel have already been assigned to the research lab. How would we reinforce more security force there? Yuan Jingxian said, to begin with, we are a defense contractor company. And I've passed this problem to the military top brass. So, I believe they will help to solve this problem. If they didn't make any moves at all, then I will spend a large sum of money to hire the best professional security personnel from the domestic private security companies. The middle-aged man asked with a confused expression. We've spent some money to hire those security guards, but their loyalty is questionable. If those forces offer them a huge sum of money, I'm afraid that they can't resist the temptation. Yuan Jingxian asked, how about the progress with the investigation for the information I gave you? About the military's secret task force that will soon be decommissioning some of their special force members. Is there any news about it now? The middle-aged man answered, we have been in touch with the military HQ, and they have sent us the list of names for the batch of secret special forces soldiers who are about to retire. Our people also have contacted them, but what? Yuan Jingxian slanted his brows and asked. The middle-aged man continued, but, not long after that group of Special Force soldiers had been decommissioned, it was as if they were somewhat repelling us. Furthermore, they also proposed to have a contest between our people and them, and the result was that our men weren't even able to withstand a single blow. That time, I looked for the opportunity to find some information about them. They seem to be very respectful of their Special Forces team leader with Wolfhead codename. Some of them have even indicated that if we can obtain this Wolfhead's consent, they would agree to work for us. 1. Wolfhead? Yuan Jingxian inquired further, and? Have you investigated this Wolfhead codename? The middle-aged man shook his head and said, the investigation is of no use. This man simply doesn't exist in this world. No file, no data, no information, everything is a blank. I've asked the military to help to investigate this man, but yet, there's no result. Yuan Jingxian said, if so, I'll visit the military top brass to find the identity of this Wolfhead. For now, leave the list of names here, you can go back. Understood. The middle-aged man took out the list of names from his briefcase. After placing it on the table, he then turned around and walked out of the room. At this time, Zhao Jing appeared from the door as she said with a bit of excitement on her face, honey, little Ling just texted me. He said that their car has entered the villa complex. Let's quickly greet them at the door. For a moment, Yuan Jingxian was surprised, and then immediately got up in a flash. Tang Xiu. He was really curious about this classmate of his son. If he was just only the person who saved his wife, he wouldn't have wanted to deign himself to greet him personally. However, recently, he was quite close with the big bosses of the Long Group and the Endless Virtue Pharmaceutical, Long Hanwen and Qin Jizhong. From them, he knew quite a lot of things about Tang Xiu. But even in his dreams, the fact that Tang Xiu was Qin Jizhong's master was beyond his imagination. Up until now, he hadn't clearly investigated as to why Qin Jizhong worshipped Tang Xiu as his master as well as what he wanted to learn from him, lying low and hiding his abilities, as well as shrouded in unfathomable mysteries. This was Yuan Jingxuan's real appraisal toward Tang Xiu. Outside, at the front courtyard, the Mercedes-Benz stopped at the parking space. After the car doors were opened, Zhao Jing's eyes turned bright with excitement, gratefulness, and a trace of fear on her face. Even until now, she was unable to forget the scene when she witnessed Tang Xiu killed the kidnapper who was about to rape her. It's really him. Even though Zhao Jing had seen Tang Xiu's photo numerous times, but only after she saw Tang Xiu in the flesh did she finally confirm with 100% certainty that he was her savior. Tang Xiu's expression was very calm. And after seeing Yuan Jingxian and Zhao Jing, he let Yuan Chuling grab his arm to drag him over to them. Dad, Mom, I've succeeded in inviting Tang Xiu. So, my mission has been accomplished. Yuan Chuling reported with a laugh. Ever since Tang Xiu got off from the car, Zhao Jing's vision hadn't even moved from him. Only after her son spoke did she finally bowed and spoke with a grateful expression, Tang Xiu, thank you. Tang Xiu replied with a pale smile, please don't be too polite. Besides, it should be me who should be thanking you. Thanking me? For a moment, Zhao Jing stared blankly. Her expression remained puzzled even though she tried to figure it out. As a wise person, Yuan Jingxian could understand the meaning behind Tang Xiu's words in an instant. He pulled Zhao Jing and said with a smile, Tang Xiu, that case, after all, was quite big. Since you were keeping it under the radar, we thought that you didn't want anyone to find out about your involvement. Even if we also wanted to repay our gratitude to our savior, we also felt that we mustn't make this issue public. This was what we felt we should do. Tang Xiu slightly nodded and said, let's just forget it, this matter is already in the past, after all. I'd like to say thank you for the invitation, and I'm really sorry for disturbing your time today. Zhao Jing was also a smart woman. However, she was too excited and couldn't catch the meaning behind Tang Xiu's words before. Only after she heard the response from her husband did she immediately realize it and said with a smile, "Tang Xiu, we feel honored to have you visit us at our home. How come you say you're disturbing us? Anyway, let's go inside quickly. I have personally cooked some dishes and prepared them on the table. So let's chat while having a meal." Yuan Jingxian also said with a smile, "Tang Xiu, let's have a chat inside." "All right." Tang Xiu complied, and then followed the family of 3 into the villa. Soon after, while having a chat with Yuan Chuling's parents, they arrived at the dining room. Yuan Jingxian took a bottle of wine and opened it as he spoke with a smile, "Tang Xiu, normally I don't drink, but I actually love collecting wines. And this bottle of wine is one of my valuable collections for more than 20 years. It was fermented from hundreds of flowers and the taste is excellent. You try the taste yourself and tell me." Tang Xiu recalled the best wine he enjoyed in the Everlasting Feast Hall when he became an honorable guest there. Then, he said with a pale smile, "Since Uncle Yuan loves to collect wine, I will send you 2 bottles of good wine some other day." Yuan Chuling replied with a smile, "As far as I know, Chen Zhizhong has collected a lot of excellent wines. If you can bring me 2 bottles of them, it would really—" He abruptly stopped speaking and paused. Tang Xiu's expression moved. Whilst letting out a smile that was yet unlike a smile, he said, "It seems that Uncle Yuan is very concerned about me. You even know that Chen Zhizhong is my apprentice." The moment Yuan Jingxian spoke candidly, he secretly regretted it inside. But after hearing Tang Xiu's response and didn't find any profound meaning behind his words, he let out a forced smile. "Tang Xiu, you are my son's classmate as well as the person who rescued my wife. That made me want to know more about you. It's just that I didn't expect that the results of the investigation about you were very hard to believe. But I can tell that you're not an ordinary youth, so you should be able to understand my thoughts. And hopefully, you don't feel offended by it." "I understand." Tang Xiu nodded. Yuan Chuling said, "Dad, there's no way someone who I regard as my eldest brother can be ordinary. I might as well tell you that not only is Tang Xiu very good in academics, he's also an awesome and powerful martial arts expert."
Ah.
"Right, I gotta tell you this also, he has just started his own business. And comparing me to him, I'm just lame." Yuan Jingxian and Zhao Jing glanced at each other with astonished expressions on their faces. "Tang Xiu, haven't you just attended the college entrance test? What line of business are you setting up? I didn't know that you unexpectedly have started your own business. Anyhow, you can tell this Uncle Yuan if I can help you with anything." Yuan Jingxian asked. "Thanks for the concern and the kind offer, Uncle Yuan. It's just only a small business, I don't need to bother you for the time being. But if one day in the future I need your assistance, I won't hesitate to speak about it to you, though." Tang Xiu said. Yuan Jingxian said with a smile, "So be it then. I give you my word that if you need anything that requires my assistance in the future, speak freely to me. As long as it's within my power, you can count on my words that I will give a hand, absolutely. Hey, Dad, don't look down on my eldest brother. He's much more amazing than you think. Even the famous Kong Xia," Yuan Chuling said. "Hey, Yuan Chuling." Tang Xiu used his hand to touch and shout at him with a low voice. Yuan Jingxian looked at his son and then shifted his vision toward Tang Xiu before he asked with a puzzled expression, "Kong Xia? Are you referring to Kong Xia, the business genius, who has just set up the magnificent Tang Corporation in Star City?" Yuan Chuling cast a glance toward Tang Xiu. Upon seeing that his face turned quite unpleasant to look at, he cried out petulantly, "Eh? Eldest brother, is there a need to conceal it from my parents?" Tang Xiu couldn't help but sigh inside. He looked at Yuan Jingxian and said, "Actually, I'm the owner of the said magnificent Tang Corporation. However, I'm rarely there. I leave the management and issues in the company to Kong Xia to take care. What? Yuan Zhengxian suddenly got up as a shocked expression burst out on his face. Who in the business world didn't know Kong Xia? She was a business genius who had once caused a worldwide sensation. Since she left the Wall Street of the World Finance Center and returned back to China, everything she had done had proved that she truly deserved her reputation. And this very same business genius also had refused numerous offers and invitations from major companies, breaking the hearts of lots of ultra-rich and powerful people as a result. She came to Star City, set up a corporation, but turned out to work for Tang Xiu? How could this be possible? Zhao Jing's face was also fully covered with a disbelieving expression. She had an advertising company and had an office in the same building as the magnificent Tang Corporation. She knew some information about this company, but it was beyond her imagination that Tang Xiu owned this magnificent Tang Corporation. Much less thought that Kong Xia turned out to work for him. Chapter 164, Mutual Cooperation. The lunch with fine dishes and great taste had been finished, and the collection of more than 20 years old good wine also had all been drunk up. Tang Xiu and Yuan Chuling had eaten and drunk to their heart's contents, but for the couple Yuan Zhengxian and Zhao Jing, even after the lunch had ended, they were somewhat still in a daze and weren't yet able to fully recover from their shock. Uncle Yuan, do you have a moment for us to talk alone? Tang Xiu looked at Yuan Zhengxian and said. Yuan Zhengxian was silent for a moment. Then, he nodded and said, "Come to my study room. Jing honey, please make a pot of tea for us and send it to my study room." With an astonished expression, Yuan Chuling asked, You got something to talk with my dad, brother? So confidential and mysterious that even I can't listen? Tang Xiu didn't answer. Yuan Zhengxian replied to him with a deep tone, "Little Ling, go watch TV in the living room." Fine, fine. With a helpless expression, Yuan Chuling shrugged and headed to the living room with lack of interest. Yuan Zhengxian's study room was antiquely designed and full of literary atmosphere. A lot of precious calligraphies and paintings hung on the wall. Aside from the notebook on the table, there was also a set of the 4 treasures of the study, pens, ink, paper and inkstone, with the bookshelves around filled with a variety of books. Yuan Zhengxian motioned Tang Xiu to come to the coffee table. After the both of them took a seat on the sofa, Yuan Zhengxian asked, "Tang Xiu, you want to talk to me alone? What is it you want to ask me about?" "There are 2 things I want to ask you. Firstly, is there anything that makes Uncle Yuan unable to speak freely about why you husband and wife took the decision for the divorce?" Tang Xiu asked. Yuan Zhengxian's face slightly changed as he asked with a deep tone, "Little Ling even told you this matter?" Tang Xiu said, "Yes." Before, he was very disturbed and pained due to this. He was depressed, behaving bad, and hated you, so I was often at his side, talking to him to lighten his mood. Then, he discovered that you two were faking your divorce, but didn't want to tell him the difficulties you were facing. It made him kind helpless inside. Of course, you also may not tell me about the reason, though. Also, the second thing I want to tell you is that you can tell me if you come across some troubles you're unable to solve later. And I'll help you once. Yuan Zhengxian silent. If he hadn't known that Tang Xiu was Qin Zhizhong's master and also the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation, he might have laughed and scoffed at his promise. But at the moment, he couldn't. After Yuan Zhengxian was silent for a few minutes, Zhao Jing brought a fragrant teapot and left the study room afterward. Then, he slowly looked up and stared at Tang Xiu as he asked cautiously, "How do I believe you?" "You may choose not to believe me. If you think you can face it yourselves, then you need not look for me later. Besides, I also don't like to have many troubles. If you weren't Yuan Chuling's father, even if you were a rich big boss, I would not even spare you a glance." Tang Xiu said indifferently. Yuan Jingshuan's brows slightly slanted and slowly said, "I do have some troubles right now. but I think I can handle it for now. The things I do, I mean the business, are confidential and it's not for me personally, but for the entire country. So I can't tell you about this. Tang Xiu said with a smile, I understand. Yuan Jingshuan's face slightly moved and asked, anyways, I heard that you're very good in martial arts, is that right? I know a little. Tang Xiu said. With a forced smile, Yuan Jingxian said, young men like you are already few, to begin with. It's even extremely rare finding one with a low profile. From our talk now, I simply can't feel that you're a youngster, but it's like I'm talking with someone on the same level of status and age. Tang Xiu said, you should be glad that you are Yuan Chuling's father. If we didn't meet today, maybe 8 to 10 years later you might need to look up to me. Yuan Jingxian involuntarily laughed and said, kid, you really speak grandiosely. Tang Xiu confidently replied, the strong and powerful need not to boast, and even though the road to the future is very long, yet we're still going forward to see and try ourselves. Going forward to see and give it a try? Yuan Jingxian narrowed his eyes as a thought suddenly crossed his mind. Then, he probed, Tang Xiu, since you can kill 5 or 6 A-class wanted criminals, that proves that you're very strong. If I ask you to help me now, can you do that? What kind of help? Tang Xiu asked with a tranquil expression. My company has a laboratory and we need to divide the core data and information into 2 parts, and send them to the newly established secret laboratory. This information is very important. No, it's of the extremely, utmost importance. Not only is this related to the success or failure of my business, but it's also related to a national secret. If I let you go with the escort, can you guarantee that nothing will go wrong? Yuan Jingxian said. For a moment, Tang Xiu was silent and slowly said, if it's related to a state's secret, why didn't you ask the escort from the police force or the military? Yuan Jingxian said, like I said, this is a top secret information. I don't want other people, or forces, to get a sniff of it. Otherwise, my business will have no way to continue. Tang Xiu nodded and said, okay, the first batch of the materials will be free of charge. The second batch will cost you quite a sum, 10 million. If you agree to my condition, I'll come to help you with the escort. However, if there is some problem midway, I'll have to charge you 100 times the basic payment. 100 times? 1 billion? Yuan Jingxian stared blankly and looked distracted. Then, he patted his thigh and said, no problem, it's a deal. Give me 3 days. The first batch of information will be sent out 3 days later. I'll have to explain in advance that my people will be responsible for the delivery, while you will be responsible for escorting. Tang Xiu asked, can I ask you the person or the force who want to snatch this information? Yuan Jingxian said seriously, the only thing I can tell you about them is that there isn't only one of them, but more than one power who want to get it. Tang Xiu nodded and said, anyway, 3 days later I'll also lead my own people. But you can rest assured that these people are absolutely trustworthy and reliable. What people? Yuan Jingxian was startled and asked. You don't need to care who they are. You only need to remember that we will be responsible for ensuring the safety of the confidential information. Suddenly, his expression moved as if he recalled something in his mind and said, Uncle Yuan, your business should be related and involving the military, yes? I presume that you have some personal network with the military. If so, I want to ask your help for something. Do say. Yuan Jingxian nodded. Tang Xiu said, I just bought an isolated island overseas, and I've been preparing to set up a security force there. I think the military has quite a bunch of capable people. So, could you help me ask them a list of veteran retired soldiers? What I need is retired special soldiers, as I don't have much hope for ordinary retired soldiers. Also, I don't need too many people, 30 people are enough. You. Yuan Jingxian didn't expect that the help Tang Xiu was seeking turned out to be this kind of matter. He subconsciously turned his head to look at his desk as he couldn't help smiling wryly inside. A piece of cake, surely never enough for 2 people to eat. If it was only ordinary retired soldiers, it wouldn't be much a problem. But Tang Xiu, after all, was the benefactor who saved his wife. If he were to hide it from him, it couldn't be justified. So, tell him about the list, or... And thinking about his capital, perhaps, it would also be very difficult for him to recruit these rebellious retired special soldiers to work under him, of which, even he couldn't do it. By that time, he'd still able to recruit them again. And not only could he follow his own conscience, he would also have done the right thing by him. After Yuan Jingxian thought up to there, he immediately got up and walked over to the table. He took the name list, handed it over to Tang Xiu and said, "My subordinate has spent a lot of effort for this one, but even so, he could only get a batch in this name list. The special soldiers in this list have just recently retired this year. I was planning on recruiting them myself to work for me. If you can recruit them yourself, then take them. If you can't do it, then I'll recruit them to work for me. So, you can't complain and blame me later." Tang Xiu looked at the names on the list a few times. After he memorized the names as well as the means to contact them inside his mind, then, he gave the list back to Yuan Jingxian as he nodded and said, "Thank you very much, Uncle Yuan. If they are not interested to work for me after I invited them, naturally, I won't have any bad thoughts for you if you can get them to work for you." Yuan Jingxian loudly laughed with a clear and resonant voice as he said, "Tang Xiu, you give me the feeling as if you're the kind of rear waves of the Yangtze River that drive on the waves before, as I am as the first wave who will end up in the sandy shore." How true this saying is. And speaking about it, the clouds and winds will indeed have to change if they ever meet with a dragon. You know, you're already this capable at present, and I'm totally clueless as to how high your achievements would be in the future. Just like you have just said, maybe I really will have to look up to you 10 years later. Tang Xiu faintly smiled and naturally accepted Yuan Jingxuan's praise. Shortly after, they chatted for a short while as Tang Xiu then got up and left. At Southgate Town. After Tang Xiu arrived at home, he saw that Gu Yin was leaning on the sofa and sleeping soundly. The house was very quiet, but he couldn't see Mu Qingping inside. Tang Xiu then went upstairs to take a wool blanket and then gently covered Gu Yin's body. Then, he personally boiled a pot of tea and drank it in the living room whilst waiting for Gu Yin to wake up. After thinking about many things, he just remembered that he had promised Gu Yin he would take her out to play for a full day after he took his college entrance test. Thus, he called the new idea's private tutor, informing her to take the afternoon off. He liked this little apprentice of his. Even more so, it could be said that he was really fond of her. After all, being capable of enduring the suffering with the kind of physique she had for 2 years and don't even dying, was tough. He could tell that had it been himself in her shoes and with the same age, perhaps, he would have long been unable to endure any longer and died already. Moreover, she was very sensible and very filial. Tang Xiu also had doted on Gu Yin. Once. It was because she experienced a painful and pitiful life. She was as though a lonely, solitary wild grass in the wild, withstanding the severe test of strong winds and storms, but in the end, was still alive and strong. Gu Yin and Gu Yin were very much similar. And at present, Gu Yin was suffering a tribulation. As she risked her life, braving the danger and traveling through time and space to come to Earth, for him. This greatly touched his heart. Therefore, he believed that with the kindness he gave to Gu Yin, she wouldn't let him down in the future. Half an hour later, Mu Qingping had just arrived from the outside. For a moment, she was slightly surprised upon seeing Tang Xiu in the living room. But when her vision landed on her daughter, warmness immediately filled her heart. Tang Xiu waved his hand to interrupt her as he got up, went over and said, "Enin is still sleeping and seems very tired. Let her sleep for a while. I just called her private tutors to cancel this afternoon's course. It's just that I have promised to take her out to play. Mu Qingping could feel Tang Xiu's concern and affection for her daughter. She almost didn't hesitate as she nodded and said, "Then, you two go. I'll be at home, doing the housework." Chapter 165, It's for You, Sweetheart. At Star City Zoo. Tang Xiu was holding Gu Yin's small hand as they strolled on the bypath in the zoo's bamboo grove. In the afternoon, Tang Xiu told Gu Yin that he would take her out to play, for which, she instantly happily agreed. However, she didn't like amusement parks but preferred going to the zoo. And naturally, Tang Xiu went along with her wish to make her happy. "Can I ask you a question?" A smile hung on her delicate, small face as Gu Yin answered, "Master, please do. The other children like amusement parks, but why do you like the zoo? Those small animals are indeed very cute and lovable, but I don't see much differences seeing them on TV with looking at them in person." Tang Xiu asked. The smile on Gu Yin's small face quickly disappeared as a sad and sorrowful expression flashed from her eyes. However, she then replied with a strong voice, "Dad once promised me that he would take me to zoo someday. However, he already died, so he couldn't take me." Suddenly, Tang Xiu gently squeezed her little hand to show his consolation and to comfort her. Gu Yin looked up as a smile returned to her small face. "Master, there's an old saying that a master for a day is equal to a father for life. You've become my master for a while now, and inside Yinin's heart, you're my father. Besides, you take me to the zoo now, so the regret in my heart is also gone." Warmness struck Tang Xiu's heart as he held her up, and said with a smile, "My family's Yinin is really sensible and thoughtful, then, come here, let this teacher, father hug you." "Tee-hee, it's itchy." Gu Yin's laughter was very sweet as though a silver bell as it reverberated in the bamboo forest. Ring, ring, ring. Inside his pocket, Tang Xiu's mobile phone ringtone suddenly ringed. Whilst still holding Gu Yin with one arm, Tang Xiu took the mobile with his other hand as he looked at the caller ID number on the screen with a sudden surprised expression on his face. "Hello, Tang Xiu speaking." Miao Wintong's voice came out from the mobile. "Tang Xiu, remember you asked my help for something? Well, I've already managed it, and I should be arriving at Star City at the most by noon tomorrow." "You mean, it's about the steward instructor tutors I asked you to look for?" Tang Xiu asked. "Yes, they are. Thank you." After saying his thanks, Tang Xiu was prepared to hang up the phone. However, Miao Wintong's voice came out again, with a slightly hesitating tone. "Anyways, Tang Xiu, can I ask for your help? I have come across some troubles recently, otherwise, I could have finished managing what you've asked earlier." "What happened?" Tang Xiu asked. Miao Wentong said, "I and Xiaomingzhen have found a sky cavern, and we suspect that there are special ores there. We've explored a layer of the cavern for a few times, but we came back disappointed every time. We also even got injured. We also tried to bring some people there, but the losses were quite serious." "Sky cavern? What's that?" Tang Xiu was somewhat confused. Miao Wentong explained, "The sky cavern is a very deep big hole created by meteorites that fell from the space and crashed on the ground on Earth. However, finding this place is quite troublesome. It's located in the Spring Forest mountain range in Dongyuan province. The terrain is quite rough, as vipers and fierce beasts roam around here, and if we aren't cautious, we'll be dumped in the swamps. The most important thing is that the place also seems to have a formation array. We went to this sky cavern a few times, and even have successfully arrived at the edge of this sky cavern. However, it's located at a precipitous mountain massif. Even more so, there are a large number of tunnels in the interior of this mountain massif. In short, the situation in this place is very complicated." Tang Xiu narrowed his eyes. At present, he was indeed eager to find the ore materials to refine interspatial rings, and now the news about special ores came to him. Thus, he didn't hesitate any longer and asked, "Where are you now?" "We're now in Sangbei County of Dongyuan Province, in a small town called Qingshan Town, located nearby the Spring Forest mountain range." Miao Wentong said. "Well, I'll settle down those foreign steward instructors first, then I'll immediately catch up with you. But I need to tell you in advance that I have to get a share of the precious ores if we can get them." Tang Shou said. "No problem." Miao Wentong was greatly overjoyed as he promised without hesitation. After the call ended, Tang Shou put down Gu Yin as he said with a smile, "It seems that not only did you become a student, but your mom is also going to become a student, since I have hired very good teachers for her from abroad." Gu Yin laughed. "Mom certainly won't be as smart as me, though." Tang Shou pinched Gu Yin's small face as he said with a smile, "Yup, our family's Yin is the smartest in the world. Anyways, there's a lion enclosure there, let's see those lions." "Yes." In afternoon, Tang Shou lingered around the zoo along with Gu Yin as they played and enjoyed themselves to the fullest. As the evening came, he took Gu Yin to eat at McDonald's and only after then did they return to Southgate Town. At night, Tang Shou called Long Zhengyu. After he got to know that the latter was drinking in the Long's dining hall, he immediately went there to see him. Some foreign steward instructors were about to arrive tomorrow and he needed to arrange the accommodation for them in advance. Moreover, it was also best to find them a proper villa in Southgate Town. The night in the Long's dining hall was filled with flashing neon lamps, giving off the scene as though a group of stars was falling to earth. Tang Shou himself had come to this place a few times, so it could be said that he was the regular for this place as the security guards also remembered him and directly let him pass, after recognizing him. "Huh? Boss, is that you?" Suddenly, a bewildered voice came from the inside of the hall. Tang Shou followed the direction of the voice, and found that it turned out to be the young Lolita, Andy. He nodded to her slightly as he went over and asked, "You came here to dine?" Andy's dress tonight was very attractive with a floral skirt, a hanging loose long hair, high heels and also wore a slightly pale makeup on her face. She laughed playfully upon hearing Tang Shou's question and said, "Chief Kong invited me here to attend a charity party. And since she doesn't like to bring along male companions, she wanted me to accompany her. By the way, are you also going to attend the charity party?" "Nope, I'm looking for someone here." Tang Shou shook his head and said, Boss, are you looking for a woman or a man? You're one hell of an outstanding man. If you ever find yourself a woman, I'll surely be very jealous of her." Andy said with a smile. Tang Shou faintly smiled. He also had heard about the straightforwardness foreign girls had, so he didn't mind Andy's remarks. Then, he said with a smile, "He's a man, a friend of mine. Anyways, what are you doing outside? Aren't you attending the charity party? Is the party over already?" "Nope, the charity party hasn't yet started. I came early and am waiting for Chief Kong." Andy replied. "That being the case, you can wait for her here. Anyways, I still have some things to take care of, so I'll go inside first." Tang Shou said. Andy quickly said, "Can you take me in, boss? The security did let me in, but I'm actually not a member of this place, so they just let me wait here. And before Chief Kong comes, they won't let me in." Tang Shou was surprised as he asked, "Huh? They let you pass through the entrance, but they didn't permit you to go inside?" Andy nodded as she showed a pitiful appearance, saying,
Yeah.
"They didn't let me in. And even more so, I'm starving right now, I got my lunch too early before." Tang Shou looked toward the security guards who were unceasingly patrolling as he waved his hand toward a familiar one he had seen before. The security guard then quickly came over as he greeted respectfully and said, "Is there anything I can help you with, sir?" Tang Xiu pointed to Andy as he said with a smile, "She's an employee in my company. I'll take her inside with me." The security was hesitated and said, "Sir, you have visited this place a few times, so I know you and I can let you go inside. But, if you want to bring other people, I'll have to consult this." Tang Xiu lightly said, "The person I'm going to meet is Long Zhengyu." The security guard was surprised for a moment before a more respectful expression quickly revealed itself on his face. "Sir, since you are our Chief Long's friend, then you are our honorable guest. Please do come in." Tang Xiu nodded along with Andy beside him. However, he had never thought that Andy would unexpectedly took his arm and even make a face toward the security. "She's such a childish woman." Tang Xiu was somewhat feeling slightly amused upon seeing Andy's nature. Shortly after, Tang Xiu took Andy along with him to the main hall. Whilst looking at the well-dressed visitors inside, he was secretly sighing in his heart. For ordinary people, they could only enter the Long's dining hall if they knew some powerful people and followed them inside. Otherwise, let alone dining inside, even those ordinary people would find it very difficult to even pass through the front entrance. The two of them took the elevator to the 16th floor as Tang Xiu then looked at Andy and asked, "Wait for me and my friend finish our talk, then you are free to find a place to eat." Andy smiled even as her eyes narrowed when she asked, "Boss, what about the reimbursement?" Tang Xiu was at a loss whether he to laugh or cry before he replied, "No need for that. Eat to your heart's content. That friend of mine is very rich, just add the bill on his tab. Besides, I'll ask someone handling this place for a membership card for you. Then, you can come this place whenever you want later." Andy blinked her eyes. Then, she tightened her legs as she bent down and instantly jumped up toward Tang Xiu's face. Since Tang Xiu was caught unprepared, he was straightly kissed on the face. As Andy's feet landed on the floor, only then she laughed, saying, "I knew it. I knew God sent you to save me. You even let me become your sweetheart. Well, I'm going to serve you well later." Tang Xiu was stunned and dumbfounded. He looked at the extremely cute little face Andy had, but this boldness and directness of hers truly made him shocked. After hesitating for a moment, he raised his hand and stroked her forehead as he muttered a few seconds after, "Huh? You don't have a fever, but why are you talking such nonsensical things?" Andy stared with a pair of big saucer eyes and exclaimed, "Boss, I do really want to be your lover. Don't think that I'm very casual. You know what? I'm still a virgin. If you don't believe me, you can try me yourself." Her voice was a bit loud as a lot of people in the surrounding immediately cast a sidelong glance over them one after another. After they looked at Tang Xiu and Andy, they were shaken as they saw the cute and lovable appearance Andy had as though they were seeing an angel. And then, they immediately cast their sight over toward Tang Xiu with a shocked expression. They truly couldn't figure out as to why such an angelic-looking girl would unexpectedly shout and want to be this young fellow's lover. Who was he? What kind of charm and capital did he have? Nearby, a elegant-looking young man with a jade-like face, who was just coincidentally passing by the two of them, suddenly stopped upon hearing the conversation between Andy and Tang Xiu. The pair of his eyes avariciously stared at the two big lethal weapons that burst out on Andy's chest as he immediately looked at her, and said, "Little sis, this young fellow is too insensitive and unromantic. You'll be bored as hell if you want him to be your lover. How about you become this big brother's lover? I assure you that you'll be happy ever after. You immoral hoodlum." Andy turned her head and angrily glared at the young man.